In this video, we're going to take a look at two things. One is the Lombok and the other is logging. If we take a closer look at the model has a certain, okay, these annotations are, this will create a setter. This will create a getter for the attributes. The no args constructor with all args constructor. Builder for a builder pattern. And posting, and when it sends a response, it should not generate any it should not give out attribute that has a null value to it. Similar goes for the DTO. Okay, so whenever a DTO sends a response to the postman, it will not send an attribute that has a null value in it, and also has a builder and a all arguments constructor, no arguments constructor, setter and getter as well. So we have added a dependency in our parent POM, and that would be here. Okay, this is important, as well as we have added a building Lombok as well, a plugin to build the Lombok as well, so that the output jar will have the setters and getters and everything being coded. Now we're going to take a look at a logging. Okay, so the logging here is, we are using log4j. Now if we take a look at the dependencies, this is a normal Spring Boot dependency, but I've excluded the existing logging from the Spring Boot that is being provided, and I've added my own log4j for this. And also I have added a disruptor. Now the reason for this is to provide a async logging. I'll provide a link for how this async logging works in the description. And I've also added map struct to this. Now the responsibility of the map struct is to do the mapping from the model to the DTO and vice versa. Okay, and also to handle that map struct with Lombok, I've added the dependency, the Lombok map struct binding. Now if we take a look at the plugins that I've added to the building of this project, there is also a Lombok map struct binding. Okay, and I've added a log4j to spring-spring.xml. Now it is important to name it this file the way that is being provided. So it should be log4j-spring.xml. Now within this file, you should provide the pattern. And I'm using the default pattern, which is this. So it has a timestamp. It has the info, the type of logging. This will specify the name of the service. This will specify the host of the service and the IP address of the service, the function, the class, and the log itself. Now, in order to get the service name in it, I have specified it in this file. It should be the host name of the service. Oh, sorry, wait. The name of the service, it is taking it from the YAML file. Okay, from here. So it's a Spring application name and the name of the service. So if you take a look at the XML file, it will have this part over here, Spring application name, spring.application name. Okay, and you need to specify that it is coming from Spring. Then there is host name. Now in order to add the host name, I have added two properties to the main file, that is host name and host address, taking from the inet address class. Okay, and if we go to the log4j2 Spring, there is host name, host address. Okay, and a sys should be added to this log. Just run the application, then it will output all of this. Now, if we take a look at mapper, the mapper is responsible for converting the model to the DTO and vice versa from DTO to the model. Now, this is what this annotation specifies that this is for the Spring, and hence we are able to auto wire it in our service. Okay, hence we are able to auto wire that in the service, and as a result, we can do the conversion over here. And when you build the jar, the Lombok mapstruct binding will be useful for converting the DTO, converting all those annotations that are specified by the Lombok into functions for the model itself, and as well as the DTO. Now, one important thing is that this log is on a single service. Okay, but if we want to scale the service on Kubernetes, this log is for single service. Okay, and if we put it into Kubernetes, it will have n number of replicas of each service. Now the logs will be on the Kubernetes. One option is to put them in the file, but that is the old way. What we're going to take a look at is distributed logging. Now, in order to have a distributed logging, we will use Elasticsearch. Now, I have a server running on I have a Linux server, or we can call it a Linux box. This Linux box has okay, and this is running certain applications. Now, if I take a look at the Docker file, the Docker processes, these are the certain processes that are running. Now, for now, we should consider three important processes. One is the Elasticsearch, the other is Kibana. Okay, now if we go to apps and go to Elastic, now I have created a Docker file for it. And let's go to .yaml. Now, this will create a Docker process or a Docker container for the Elasticsearch as well as for the Kibana. And one more thing is I have added this code to the GitHub, and I have provided the link I'll be providing the link in the description as well. Now, if we go to now, along with Elasticsearch and Kibana, it is also important to run Logstash. Now, Logstash is responsible for putting a log into the Elasticsearch. Now, if we take a look at this, go to Logstash. And in order to run Logstash, you need to specify, am I running it anywhere? Okay. Go to bin. Okay. If I go inside bin, there will be a logstash.sh. This one, we need to run this along with the config file. Logstash.conf. Now, if I take a look at the logstash.conf file, so it says that there is a port number that you can connect to, and it should be of type line. And there is a output where it will. So this is for taking in the input, and this is putting out the output where it should put the output into. So this input will be from the Spring Boot application that will be running, that will provide as an input to the Logstash, and the output will be the Logstash will put the output to the Elasticsearch. Now, since the Elasticsearch is running on the same machine, I have provided the URL as local host as well as the logs. The index on the Elasticsearch will be as the name that you provide over here. Now, let me start the Logstash. This will take some time. Now, before that, I would specify this. Now, let's say this will enable the log to be put into the Elasticsearch. So this is the IP address of my server on my of my local machine, of my and local machine, and this is the port number of the Logstash. Where this is the server where the Logstash and Elasticsearch is running, and the port number of the Logstash, the pattern that I'll be putting, which is similar over here, and also the appender that it should put it into the Logstash. Now, if I let me see, so the Logstash is running. Let me open my Elasticsearch and Kibana. Okay, so the Kibana is running, and if I go to discover, there is also a index that is being provided by the Logstash. Now let me change the name of this index and show it to you. Okay, how this can be configured. Now, if I take a look at if I go over here, and let me just stop this. Let me update the config file. This will, I'll name it Spring Boot log 4j2 log, or I can say Spring Boot logs. In Spring Boot logs, and this will be, let's save it and exit, get status. Sorry, I'll go to CD and run it again. So okay, the Logstash started. Now, if I take a look at if I start the service, so it will log in the console as well, and it should also put it into the Elasticsearch. If I go to the DevTools and get all the indices, so if I take the log is over here, okay, the index is over here for logging, and then I go to index management. Mm, mm, mm. Oh, sorry. Go to stack management, index management. and create an index. The index is already there. So what we can do is go to discover and add this over here. Wait a minute. Create a data view of Spring Boot logs. Save data view to Kibana. And here we go. We have the logs. As now, if we take a look at the message, so you have a timestamp, you have the message, and in the message you have the service name, the host name, and the IP address that is coming from. So if we run this from the Kubernetes or Docker, this will have a different IP address of the container. The service, you can see who has produced the logs now, and you can do a filter on this as well. So you can have like a post service. So got this right. So this is how we can do distributed logging for the Spring Boot services. That's it for this video.